All right, we have a new guest. Took her in on trade. I believe this is the Cove Armageddon, the 3-inch coil version on a 10-inch, but I'll have to take it out and do its own review. But today's review is on the original Orion HCCA, first come out, introduced in 1998. The OEM was TC Sounds. And this was the original dust cap. And I have not seen this version before, which was great. So the original design used an aluminum coil, which looks very familiar on the Eclipse. I think 8000 series that also used it used a frame similar to this, but it used an aluminum adapter to bolt to the side of the top plate, and then was removable. That was one of the removable quick change assemblies or removable top assembly technologies that Thilo and TC Sounds had patented. So we'll go over that in another video. But they used a single control spider. It looks like they didn't do an epoxy bead down here, nor here. And again, not that you need to, but I always like to do it, just to reinforce it, because a lot of you guys are really tough on these speakers, and I want to build them the best that I can to avoid any future problems. Now, this is as TC as it gets, because these are very tiny leads, and I don't want to say they tend to burn up, but they definitely let the manufacturer, or in this case the brand, Orion, know that you've been abusing your woofer if you burn them up, and that's one of the reasons why they have them. In this version, this coil was not burned up. I think it just had a bias to it. It's not really worth recycling, just because I like to use the copper version. If you compare the copper version, and I did this with the Rockford Fosgate T1, as well as the Punch HX2, and there was one other one where they had initially, both of these were Rockford, where they had initially used a copper coil and then later changed to an aluminum coil to save money, and then had gone with a even softer suspension. So with the softer suspension, it wears over time, so the product usability decreases. But again, they only have a 1-year warranty, so they're like, thanks for paying your, whatever it was, $600 for this woofer. Go fuck yourself. And I'll actually be reposting a video that I just saw about, it was just a make-believe fun cartoon about the way that Microsoft fucks its own customer base and betraying them by preying on them and getting more money out of them with the new pricing on the Xbox Game Pass. This is what greedy capitalists do over and over and over again. And this is the problem when buying from a big, well-established brand such as JL Audio or Rockford Fosgate or even Sundown Audio, is they keep making lots of more money for their preferred shareholders, not necessarily for all shareholders, like in the case of Sundown, just for the preferred shareholders and their, cronies, and then they fuck everybody else that is a minority shareholder. And then, like I said, I see them specifically in the Showtime Electronics group is either sacrificing some of the smaller brands and getting them to go into debt, the companies, not the people, the companies to go into debt, and then use that money as an extraction method to just steal money, not only from people that are overpaying, but also from the banks. So, but anyways, we'll talk about that later. So, 40 millimeter wine height. The Thilo Thilo was the designer, engineer, co-founder. I think it was him and his mom that created TC Sounds, and but he was the product designer. And he did a lot of stuff based on imperial measurements. So this actually works on an imperial basis. However, I'd love to know at what time he started having things made overseas in China, and maybe it was from the beginning. I don't know, and which is odd because Thilo's he has an accent. I'm not sure where he's from, but he doesn't. English doesn't seem to be his primary language, and the rest of the world uses metric. So I thought that was interesting that he would choose that. I think it was a little bit of marketing, because I saw that, not so much anymore, but maybe 10 years ago, there were other companies like brands that like JL Audio and Rockford Fosgate as well, using imperial standards as for measurement as a way to show that it's either made in USA or designed in the USA, like you saw with the Audio Frog yesterday. It says designed in California, but of course made and executed in China. So this version uses I noticed that the terminals are the gold plated. Positive is on the left. I don't know where that batch came in where I saw the switched, and that was for a couple of years. The only ones I was seeing was where they used the two spiders, but then they put the leads in between, and they wrapped them with foam, which is a not as choice attachment method. So all it does is keep them from making noise, rattling around inside the woofer. Diamond Audio also employed another method like that of using a polyfill to hold the leads in place, rather than paying the extra $1.75 for leads that are either woven or sewn and glued. The standard is sewn and glued into the spider without compromising the spider. I don't like this spider because if you notice on the back side there is lead exposed. And one of the designs that Thilo also did was the Sunfire True Subwoofer 8-inch. And I think I brought one home from the other night. I'll show you on that one. I've showed you in other videos where the fix for that, because the 8 had so much excursion that this spider was touching the top of the gap right here. So to fix it, he just put Kapton, a couple of layers of Kapton tape on there, so that it was allowed to touch, but it wouldn't arc out. It wouldn't create a short, which is, that's a problem. It's a fire hazard. So these used a Santoprene surround, which was developed by Monsanto. At the time, it was like a prestigious thing, as if they made some sort of magical type of rubber that lasts forever. And, as we know about Monsanto now, their care for the planet is not so great. So, but that was their brand of rubber surround, and Orion touted that, advertised that as a way to make it long lasting. And so if these were built in, say, 98, 99, this is very long lasting. Probably forever chemicals. Not that that's bad for audio. It's bad for the planet, but it's not our problem. That's our kids' problem. So anyways, we got the 12-inch as well. This one had a little crash, you could tell, meaning that they bottomed it out, and then the rest of it just, you keep going, keep playing it. And it probably bottomed out from pushing it too hard, because I was able to fish the coil out, and there was some discoloration on the coil, meaning it got red hot enough to cook the enamel on the coil. And this is how all coils are made. There's no such thing as like Chinese coils are better than or less than American coils. All the coils are built the same. Now, if one of them, doesn't matter if it's Chinese or Americans, forgets to bake them at the end so that they congeal and become one solid mass, that will cause this slinky problem, especially at somewhat abusive circumstances. So it's okay if it does it at a highly abusive standard, but sometimes people complain, especially the end users that are, again, there's a lot of dumb end users, a lot of retarded people out there, a lot of people on the spectrum, I should say. Sorry about that. A lot of people on the spectrum that buy and use car audio, and they don't think that they're being abusive, but they are. Anytime you burn the coil, or even discolor it, anytime you discolor or burn the tinsel lead, that is abuse. You are doing the bass wrong. Okay, just so you know. Now these cones were actually American made. If I remember right, it was from Hawley Products, which is Hawley. Not sure if that brand is around anymore. A lot of times when a American manufacturer like that goes belly up, it's usually a buyout. So I'm not sure if Eminence bought the tools that used to make these cones, or if one of the what is it called? Loudspeaker components. Neil Kirchbaum has gotten a nice wide variety of suppliers of chemicals, glues, adhesives, and all kinds of materials of American speaker building. So right now I think he basically has a monopoly, but it's not a monopoly on the market because everybody just goes to China. So, but once there's tariffs or an embargo, he's a rich man because people will need their shit now. So, but right now I'm in the middle. I think I found somebody that has a stash. I have not received the product yet, and I think it was after Neil had bought them. Again, this is not confirmed. This is all just guessing because what Neil did was he had bought like New Way, Nuway, and they have a factory in Mexico, and then also warehousing on this side of the border in Nogales for the spider manufacturing and also dust caps and some other speaker products. I've been wanting to get down there and do a tour, but I think my reputation kind of precedes me as being pro loudspeaker, and it's not that I'm anti loudspeaker. I have a problem with exploitation and greed. So, but that's when you sign up for a business with the state. That's what you're signing up for, and that it now seems to be the religion of the state. And according to the documents that were signed by the president, if you don't believe in those values, you are going to jail. So, all praise capitalism. Now, I've always been a critic of these screens. In fact, I used to sell the stainless ones that came from the auction of Orion ADST, which was the parent company to ADS, Orion, PPI, and Apogee. And I think they only used the stainless screens later on, but we had a bunch of stacks of them. I used to sell them to a bunch of rural people that would use them as water filters, to catch large particulate. But this one uses the it's just regular old window screen, like plastic screen that you get from Home Depot to make your own screens at home, and then they just looked like if they just used a press that would pop a circle out, and then they just glue it on. So I don't like these. There's no real reason to have them, and they are air restrictive, and I really like to have as much ventilation around the coil as possible, so I always remove them when I do a recone. If you noticed, these just use the regular flatheads. These are American made. They're usually about I want to measure in millimeters, which is the typical is 10 to 12 millimeter, but these are probably 1/4 inch, maybe even 3/16. And on this particular version, they just use the regular ones. I've shown some other videos where at one point they used like Star, the Torx interface bit, and even the Torx security bit. And I think I was tearing one of these open, and I showed why would they have a security bit head in there, and it was that Thilo ran out of screws from his supplier, and he said, what else do you have that's 1/4 and anywhere from 1/4 inch to 3/16 or even 1/2 inch, and he's like, this is what we got, and so that's what he used. So things like that do happen in manufacturing, but a lot of times, especially from China, you do not see that because they have lots and lots of supplies for anything and everything you ever want to make and do. And there's nothing wrong with having manufacturing in China or some other country or continent or area where labor is cheap. Because again, this is all about making money. Now, if you want to be egregious about the money making, that's where I kind of have a problem, and I complain. I do. I'm not rich, and I don't like it to exploit people. So I will probably never be rich. I prefer the truth over tricking people. So, but that's my problem. That's my issue, and I will always be a poor, sensitive pussy, according to some capitalists. So, I think the other part that was American made, other than the assembly, because I believe that the steel was actually imported from China. I don't know what time. Again, I don't know when Thilo. Maybe just it was pricing in the 90s, maybe the early 2000s, mid 2000s, that he switched to China Steel and then did final assembly in San Diego. I don't know. A lot of times when you see this kind of corrosion, and this is not rust. I think this corrosion is based on the finish, the nickel finish. It's a clear, it's a clear nickel oxide that they use to finish the steel. And Thilo really didn't finish them the way that you might even these. So this uses also a clear nickel. There's only really three. Do I keep saying nickel? What do I really mean? Zinc. Sorry. My bad. Zinc. So you see this zinc oxide also in sometimes aluminum frames that I used to show you after they sit outside, and that's because China used to mix some zinc in with the aluminum. And the way you tell the quality of aluminum is if it shows up. These used a coating of zinc, and that is what is oxidized. You can just scrub it off with a Scotch-Brite pad. You have to remove the decal, of course, if you want. You can do it with it on it. Again, nobody really looks at the back. The version that I had planned for the reboot of this motor was actually chrome. So, which I thought would be just kind of nicer, but I wanted to keep it as an old school look and use this decal the way that they did. And we may still do I don't want to call it an imprint, but a version that you can badge. So, because if I put the badge on the woofer, that's an Orion product, and it has to be sold by Orion. So, and that you're stepping on their toes. And so if we were to make a clone of this, I could not put that on there, and I also couldn't put the dust cap on there. Now, if I included them for free and you put them on, that's your business. But again, I think even talking about that for somebody like Bernie Boland, he would find that threatening and do his best to twist my niblets. So, but this finish, I believe, is a shot finish where they use sandblasting to kind of just give it a uniform finish, and then they finish with the zinc, the clear zinc. The other one that you've probably seen in a lot of like Sony or Kenwood is a yellow zinc, which is it's not any worse. It's just what China has a lot of, which is and I think it has like a little bit of impurities in it, but for the most part it works really well. You see it in a lot of transformers. That's what I've seen it in, where they just dunk it and plate the whole thing to prevent rusting. So, but I wanted to do a polish finish and then a clear zinc, and then also do a chrome version. That was, again, that's just me. That was me doodling around in the big house in prison on what I wanted to do. So you can see a little bit of corrosion on top. And it's mostly you just see that in humid environments, like down through the South, Florida, all the southern states, Hawaii, and things like that. Sometimes up north a little bit, especially like, nobody likes to really buy car parts from the Northeast because of all the salt that they use on the road. Most people like to use the classic cars, buy classic cars either out of Cali. Again, you sometimes have a problem with the moisture there, but mostly out of Arizona and New Mexico because of the low humidity. Those car parts are allowed to hang out in the environment and not rust. Um, 40 millimeter, 3-inch standard, 8-inch spider. Just really a top-notch woofer. I am going to get drawings, basically, so that we can have the exact specs to send China to mock up a version of this. There's no difference between this, as far as performance goes, this and the Sunfire series of subwoofers that was designed and built for Bob Carver's Sunfire brand of home subwoofer. This one was called the TC9. This was the original version. Was dual 20 millimeter slugs, dual 3/4 inch, and it was used on the 10-inch and the 12-inch. And the reason why they kept the same motor thickness on the 10-inch and the 12-inch mostly was because I don't think they wanted to tool up another boot. So this was the boot that they tooled up, and there's no branding on it. So sometimes when there's no branding on it, a lot of times they'll just ask the OEM, the people that actually make the product. They're like, hey, can you split the tooling cost with us, or can you give us a discount or something like that? Because so then that way the OEM can then sell it to other companies, other speaker manufacturers that would use a boot like this. And but now in China, you're like, nope, brand it. And I think it's about $1,200 for the tooling on that, which is not a lot when you're looking at manufacturing. But if you're just, some jerk off in his house, that's a big chunk of change. And that's why sometimes you don't see either a boot at all, or you just, it's a generic. So, and then this one has the full boot, which is full 2-inch slugs, dual 2-inch slugs, and a little bit taller pole piece. Look at the gap. Nope, it's the same. So you can tell this one has a little bit more space. I don't know if you can see that from the camera's angle. See how the pole sticks out a little bit more? And then this one sticks out the same. So they use the same pole length on both motors, and Thilo just gave a little bit extra so that way he could use it on either model. Now, Thilo also designed an in-between on the Sunfire model. This dual 3/4 inch slugs was used on the 10-inch, and then on the 12-inch, he decided to use one 1-inch slug and one 3/4 inch slug. This was a series that he did. Later on, they changed to a dual 1-inch slugs, and that's the version that I showed you with the Hi-Vi. Do you remember that review? Where it used, I think, dual 1-inch slugs. I'll have to bring it back in here and look at it again. So, but that was the final version of the TC9 that Thilo had reintroduced back in 2006, I believe. And I was asking him about the phone. I said, well, this is TC9. He goes, well, this is TC9 Plus. And so that's usually I make fun of that. Just like when Orion would say, this is XTR, and then this is XTR Pro. And then you're like XTR Pro Plus. And a Recoil does the same thing. They do Echo Pro, Echo Pro Max. They do the same naming conventions, to show slight upgrades on the product. But I think that was it. Standard 689 frame, also known as the Venezuelan. For some reason, I thought it was the Brazilian, but it's a Venezuelan frame. Originally tooled up. I forget now. I know that the 12-spoke frame, I had talked to somebody at Eminence, and they had actually paid for the tooling on that, and then they didn't enforce their contract with China, and then China just went crazy with it. So, but anyways, not that it really matters. Yes, you can run a quad coil. That's what it's designed for, if you want. Typically, they come out with just the 2 holes, and then you get the frame from the factory, and then you have to drill the third to do the standard push terminals. Again, this is a really high quality sub. If I remember right, it was right around $600 MSRP, and production cost now on something like this is right around $50, maybe $60 for the 15, and that maybe add another $5 for landed price. That's about what they cost, with a minimum order quantity of 100 pieces. Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. I see a little bit of glue. I'm not a fan of gluing the frame to the top of the magnet, but a lot of companies do it. I guess it's just being extra sure of stuff. This one actually has 2 patterns, and then they do a divot where you can go back and add that pattern, or as a backup, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So you can go back and it's a spare pattern in case something breaks or in case something's off a little bit or something like that. I guess this one doesn't have that. And so sometimes you'll even find another version that they haven't taken out so wide, and it's made for typically a 2.5-inch coil, and it'll have a smaller bolt hole circle. So, but that's it. That's my. I love this subwoofer. It's one of my favorites. It's as far as today, it would be equal to something like the Scar EVL that uses a 3-inch coil. The other one would be a Rockville K9, or even the Froggy G Series, which uses a 3-inch coil as well. So, or even one of my weird Frankenstein piece of shits that everybody hates, even though I produce basically $1,000 subwoofer and I sell it for like $250. And you know, nobody seems to look like this, but anyways, this one is going to be for sale after I do the review, and this is a Dub 7 box that was made in USA. It's missing. Is it missing the front plate? I thought there was a front plate that you could add. I can't remember now. Or maybe, no, these bolts hold on this front plate. It's a countersink. It's just a beauty ring. It also helps space out the protection bars, and then the bars have the bolt in the back. So if I remember right, but I got to take all that stuff off in order to get the subwoofer in there. So this is the sealed version. They also made a ported version and then an HO version, which is a high output, which is like just a wisp of bandpass to give you a little peak in response. But anyways, we'll do another video on that. Thanks for watching, guys. That was a 26-minute video about was it 30 years? It's 30 years? No, it's even older than that, 1998. So 40-year-old. I don't know, you guys can do the math. It's from 1998. These are great subwoofers, and I'm very glad that Thilo decided to really go big on woofer design and change the industry forever. So thank you, Thilo. I really appreciate it.